Today you see two shirts, one in cotton, one in chiffon, completely opposite spectrums of weight and feel, just totally different fabrics, the same pattern. Stay with me. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. Today I'm really happy to show you my Aria shirts, button downs, whatever you want to call them. This is a new pattern from Love Notions that's been in the works for ages, and I've been just busting to sew up some woven patterns. I grew up sewing wovens. I probably sewed wovens for many years before I even started sewing with knits. So it is my first love. It's where I feel I'm at home. All the techniques, the feels of the fabric, it's all very comfortable and very enjoyable for me. So woven pattern, I'm all over it. And today I have two Arias to share with you, but there will be many more. Believe me, I know it. I know it. The Aria is a button down and you have two neckline options. One is more simple and it's a banded collar. It's two pieces that are the same. Both are interfaced and they go all the way around, have a little roundy bit right there. Super pretty. I've posted very recently a video about how to sew them, knowing that this was coming, and I wanted to have really good content for you in preparation for shirts, because it's really nice to sew shirts. Many of you haven't done it and you're missing out. The other option is a collar that looks like a traditional collar with the stand and the collar, but this is all in one piece, which makes it so much easier to sew. There are many steps that you don't need to do there, and when you interface both layers you can still have a really pretty result. The previous video I posted on the channel was all about how to sew the collar of the Aria and also the traditional collar. You have already seen content about the Aria even before it released. Another classic feature that the Aria has that you'll see in other shirts is the yoke. The yoke here comes forward a little bit. It's not right at your shoulder, it's forward about an inch. 2 layers, and that means that you can enclose seams. You can use a burrito roll, which is always super amazing and gives a really neat result inside. In the center front, you have a button placket that is a separate piece. Super easy to sew on and looks really neat. If you want to, you can sew a bust pocket or two. There is a pattern piece for that. It's really an option I go for, but I know a lot of people like those, so it is available. For the sleeves, you can make it sleeveless, or you can make a short sleeve with a cuff that's folded up, or you can make it full length with a cuff, 2 pleats and a sleeve tower placket, which is an amazing technique. Love that. Both the short sleeve and the full length sleeve have their own pattern pieces and cuffs. They are totally different drafts, so it's not like it's the same piece with different cut lines. For the length, you can make it shirt length. Depends on how tall you are. It could hit between the mid hip and the full hip. For all these versions, you have a curved hem. You can make it a tunic also, and that'll be around mid thigh, or you can make it a shirt dress. The tunic and the dress have side vents as an extra detail. If you make a dress and you want some shaping at the waist, you can make yourself a belt with the same fabric as like a sash. The other option is to sew an exposed casing all around the waist and then put a drawstring in there. That is the option that appeals to me. I've done that before and I think it looks really pretty. So if you take into account all these options, and when you start mixing and matching, you can make 20 of these and they won't look the same. You have many options to choose from. And that is why these patterns become so addicting. It's because you want to make all the views and all the versions and all the lengths, and I can see myself getting there. Because the Aria is a brand new pattern, it is discounted for the first week, 28% off. It's not a small discount. And there's also another product that you can purchase if you're interested. For the first time, Tammy has produced a course for the Aria. So in your account, you have this course that you can access and watch at your leisure. You always have access to it, and you can watch several lessons that will take you from the beginning to the end, so you can make your Aria. Really great for beginners. So if you purchase the course during this release week, the Aria pattern will be included. When you're at checkout, you'll get a code and then your pattern will appear there at checkout. So that's one perk of buying the course during release week, because you get the pattern included. Once the release week is over, you can still purchase the Aria course. It just won't have the pattern included. You'd have to buy the pattern separately. So that is an option for you. If you think that's something that you need, go ahead and have a look. I will leave all these things linked down below. the link for the course, the link for the pattern. I've also made a really comprehensive blog post that includes all the helpful content I have on the channel for shirt making. It's all in one click. It's really easy for you to find. You just tap, tap, tap and see all the content I've created around shirt making that's going to help you sew these types of garments. Remember to use my code Karina10 at checkout for an extra 10% off, even when there is a sale. And my affiliate links, of course, are down below as usual. The fabric choices you have here are so broad. I mean, you can choose any woven fabric as long as it's light to medium weight. I usually tend to class them as more structured, and in other types of projects, it's the types that I rarely would use, but not for a shirt. I think for this, you can take out your quilting cottons, your cotton lawn, your shirtings, chambray, sisaka, your linen blends, all those types of things, and it'll work really, really well. I've actually made a version in cotton, which is a rare occurrence for me. Not because I don't like cotton, it's because I can't find nice ones that are really lightweight. And I don't quilt, so I don't have quilting cotton at all. Like, I just don't have any, but I don't have others either. I recently found 2 pieces that I bought, and in different colors, but they are the same print. I ended up choosing a pink version that you can see here. It's very, very lightweight. It's almost see-through. It's so soft. It's 100% cotton. Feels amazingly fresh and light on. And when I found the pink one, I also found this one. If I had made it with this one, it would have been the safest choice for me. You know, I like sewing black and white. But I went ahead with the pink because it's something that is not typical for me, but there's no baby pink in there, which is key. I really like the bold pinks in there. Last Friday, I showed you 2 new Allegro bottoms that I made in linen. One was navy, one was terracotta. And I had those pants in that color, and I showed you 3 chiffon fabrics that I still hadn't made my choice with to make an Aria. Well, I've chosen one of those chiffon fabrics to make an Aria. For this one, I used the long sleeve version. I did the tower placket, the collar. Everything can be done in chiffon. It just takes a little patience, a little more time, and I wouldn't suggest you just dive into your first shirt with chiffon. Just don't do that. Other notions that you need are lightweight interfacing, because there are plenty of pattern pieces that you will need to fuse, like the collar pieces, the center front placket pieces, if you're doing the long sleeves, the sleeve plackets, the cuffs. I mean, there are plenty of little pieces that you need to fuse. Don't think you can skip that. You really, really do need to fuse the pieces that need to be fused. And as you know, I like to block fuse. I've got a few images for you to see here. It's very simple, it's not complex. Just take your piece that needs to be interfaced, choose a piece of fabric that is going to be slightly larger than that, and go ahead and fuse the fabric first. Then put your pattern piece on top and then cut it out. I like to cut it with a rotary cutter. It gives me the most precise cut, and nothing moves, nothing shifts. You can also see here that my collar piece, I extended it to make it one piece. That way I don't have to cut it on the fold. That way I can reduce human error that sometimes you get with the fold there. So little things that can just help you get a better result in the end. Depending on the type of length you're making or your preference, also you will need a lot of buttons. 3/8, half an inch, not huge, not tiny buttons. In my cotton Aria, I used 8 buttons down the front. But for my chiffon version, I used 10 down the front because I made it a little longer. I also put 2 here and 2 there, so it ended up being 14. On the pattern pieces, you will see buttonhole reference marks. They are usually less than what I prefer. I like having my buttons about 2 inches, maybe 2¼ max apart from each other. And I always want one to be right at my bust height because that's how I'm going to avoid gaping. You know, your blouse can have a lot of ease, but if you have a button here and a button there and no button at the apex, it's going to gape regardless, even if you have a lot of ease. So for me, reference marks of buttonholes are just that. I would never go ahead and actually make the buttonholes where the pattern says because it might not match. Everyone's bust height is located differently, so I would suggest customizing that if you are worried about gaping. The Aria goes up to a size of 5X, and that goes up to a bust of 57.5 inches and a hip of 59.5 inches. You have a regular bust option and a full bust option. The difference here, it is a woven pattern, so it's different to knit patterns. The standard bust doesn't have a bust dart. The full bust option does have a bust dart. The recommendation is always to choose the full bust option if the difference between your high bust and your full bust is 4 inches or more. In my case, I have a 3-inch difference, which is not a lot less. So I know I always benefit from a basta. It is a woven garment after all. And just from experience and from sewing, I know I need it there and I'll be happiest with the basta there. So even though technically I should make a standard bust, I went with the full bust option in this case because it is a woven. All I did was take it in at the waist and hips while I was trying on, because when you choose the full bust option, you also get extra ease at the waist and hips, 2 inches. You might want that. In my case, I don't really want it that much, so I'm always open to customizing and pinning on the side seams while sewing to take it in a little bit to make it like I want it to be. In the finished garment measurements chart, you not only find circumference, you find lengths. So you'll see the finished length of the shirt, the tunic, the dress. By looking at those, I know it was going to be too short for me. So you can see my length adjustments here on this diagram. I decided to add length sort of at the hip area, not at the waist, because I really have a short torso. So I think you can add the length you need according to where you need it on the body. You might need to add it above the bust or in this area, above the waist or at the hips. Just have a think about that and see where it would suit you according to your proportions. I added 2 inches front and back. Make sure whatever change you make, you also make it to the front placket, because otherwise it won't match. For the sleeves, I added 1.5 inches there. I always know I need a longer sleeve to be more comfortable. Let's hop into sewing. For the Aria, you'll be using a 3/8 seam allowance for the main seams, but be careful because some of them are sewn with 1/4 inch. So you have to really look at the pattern and every single step because it tells you. So don't just assume everything is 3/8. I'm going to share with you a lot of sewing content, pattern pieces, stabilizing necklines, center front plackets, the back pleat, the short sleeves, the cuff. There's a lot to see. And there's also things that I have not filmed because I have a lot of content about shirt making on the channel already. So I will point out where to find these things when the time comes. Let's hop into Up Close and So Personal. This is the shirt version of the Aria, and here is the front. This is the front button placket that is interfaced, both of these. This is the back. It's cut on the fold. You can see it has a straight edge there. There will be a pleat in the center back, and here we have 2 yoke pieces that will complete the back. Those will be burritoed, and that seam and the shoulder seam up there will be enclosed. Here we have a short sleeve, a cuff, and the collar piece is integrated. The collar stand and the collar is in one piece, and both of these layers also are interfaced. Before doing the main steps of the sewing, I'm going to protect the front neckline and do some stay stitching. I'm doing it within the seam allowance, which is 3/8, so a little bit smaller than that, and I'm starting from the shoulder and going to the center. That for both of the front pieces. For the back, I have put a pin right there in the center, and I want to sew from the shoulder to the center and then from the other shoulder to the center. That way I just keep it uniform and keep the shape without distorting. So once I sew one half, I flip it to the other side and do the other half. There are 2 yoke pieces, so 2 back necklines to stay stitch, and then we can put these aside. Now I'm going to use the 1/4 inch presser foot to do a few guide stitches. So these are the long placket pieces. Choose any of the raw edges, it doesn't really matter unless you have a special print and you have a preference, but otherwise I'm just going to do a guide stitch 1/4 inch from the edge, just a long stitch that's going to help me press that in, and I'm going to repeat that for both placket pieces. Here I am at the iron, just pressing one of the raw edges in. The guide stitch helps a great deal. I really like precision here, and maybe you could eyeball 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I really don't want to, so I never think it's a waste of time to do a guide stitch. I'm on my table and I have my front piece. Now I have the wrong side of the fabric up facing towards me. I've got some chalk marks that mark the wrong side. The right side is quite easy to tell. The colors are much more vibrant, but that might not come across on camera. Anyway, what you need to do now is take your placket and put the placket, right side of the placket, against the wrong side of the blouse, all along this front edge from the top to the bottom. So I'm just going to give it a quick pin, and then we're going to do a straight stitch using a 3/8 seam allowance to unite both pieces together. Okay, Okay, this is the wrong side of the blouse. You can see my colors are faint compared to the ones on the right side. We have the right side of the placket, the wrong side of the blouse. And how this is going to be finished is that we're going to flip this over to the right side like that. Remember, this edge, we had just pressed it, so it's already in by 1/4 inch. Now this comes over to the right side, and this is where we top stitch. I'm going to do an extra step here, and that is to understitch, just to make sure that the wrong side of the fabric will stay inside the blouse and it won't be seen. What I have here is the seam allowance pointing towards the blouse, so the placket is extended, and on my right hand I have the placket, on my left hand I have the blouse, and I want the seam allowance under there, and I want to sew on the edge there. That way, when this is folded, I will make sure that the wrong side stays inside by like a little bit, because the understitching will make it roll in. I really don't want the wrong side of the fabric to show. So again, I've got the placket here, the seam allowance is extended underneath the front of the blouse here, and that's where I'm edge stitching. I have my blind hem presser foot with the needle to the left, and that helps do that understitching really neatly. Okay, so this is the blouse. Now that the understitching is done, I'm going to fold this placket over like that. This is the right side of the blouse. This cotton presses really well, so I'm not going to hand baste. I'm just going to stitch this down. You can see that's what's inside, all the interfacing. I'm going to top stitch that. You can also top stitch the inner edge, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it like that. I think it looks nice. Again, I'm going to use my blind hem presser foot with a needle to the left to do this really neat edge stitch. That's done. Super easy, very neat. Got the interfacing and 2 layers of fabric, and this is where you're going to do your buttonholes at the very end. So plackets are done, and then you just repeat the same for the other side. This is the back piece, and on the top you'll find little marks. It's a little distance from the center back right there, so just align those. We're just going to do a basting stitch to form this pleat, so I'm going to sew down about 2 inches. It's just to form the pleat. The pleat won't be sewn down in the end. We're looking at this from the wrong side. Just open up this volume that the pleat has created and distribute this to both sides, and I'm going to give it a baste here on the top to keep it in place. Here's the back and the 2 yoke pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do the burrito roll method. That is going to put together the front with the 2 yokes plus the front shoulders. I already have a video showing you how to do that in a lot of ways. I will put a thumbnail here so you can see how it looks like, and I will leave that linked for you there. I won't film that again because I've already filmed it. I left you there right before sewing the burrito method. Look, I have made a full-on video showing you 4 ways how to do that. I really don't want to be filming the burrito method every single time I sew a pattern with one. It gets really repetitive for you and for me, and especially since I've already made a really good video about it. When you look at the video that has the 4 ways to do it, option number 2 is the one I like to use for this one, where you sew the shoulders first and then you do the roll sewing the back seam last. You can do it the other way around also. That's the one I've chosen there. I have just finished uniting the yoke pieces to the front and the back. Here is the front. There are the 2 yoke pieces. Here is the button placket. On the inside, this shoulder seam is enclosed, same as the seam under there. On this inner yoke, you have the right side of the fabric showing. On the shirt, you have the wrong side down there. What I've done now is I've pinned these 2 layers of the yoke together just to base them there, so when we sew on our sleeve, that's not going to get in the way. That's on both sides. I've also pinned the 2 back necklines together so we can just stitch them together right there so we can sew on the collar. Again, I've left you there without sewing the collar, and that's because I have already sewn it and it is in the separate video about collars. That's how the thumbnail looks. So there is a lot of content already that is going to help you sew up the shirt. Also, if you're finding the content helpful, go ahead and subscribe. Tap on all the things, notifications, so you never miss out when I upload new videos. After finishing that collar, what I did was sew the side seams. Super simple, you didn't really need to see that. It's just a straight seam and it's been serged. I have short sleeves here and cuffs, so I'm just going to do 4 little straight seams, sew the short ends of the cuffs together, press those seams open, and I'll also sew the seams of the sleeves. These sleeves are set on the round, so these little seams will need to sew up. Once the sleeves are ready and the cuffs, I'll put those together, and once that's done, then I'll go ahead and set the sleeve onto the armhole. Okay, here we have a sleeve and the fabric is right sides out. The seam is inside there and we have a cuff. Remember we sewed the short ends. All I did was go to the iron and press this cuff lengthwise, wrong sides together so that we have a round piece. This cuff is going to go inside the sleeve. What's going to happen now is that you're going to meet the seam of the cuff with the seam of the sleeve, and the right side of the cuff is going to be touching the wrong side of the sleeve. So it looks wrong, it looks really wrong, but it'll be fine, don't worry. And it'll fit exactly the same size. Now all we need to do is sew this and serge it. Now cotton is super easy to work with, so I don't even need pins here. You have 3 raw edges and they just have to be together. So that's sewn. Now I'm just going to go ahead and clean this with a serger. Okay, so here we have a sleeve. Remember the cuff was inside. When we pull the cuff out, we can fold it over like this. And then the seam is clean there, right there on the edge. Now I'm going to do one extra step, which is to understitch. I don't want the wrong side of the fabric to show. So basically I'm going to keep the seam allowance of the cuff pointing up like this towards the sleeve itself, and I want to sew on the edge there. So that ensures that when the cuff is folded, the wrong side is going to stay tucked inside. So to do this, we have to turn the sleeve wrong sides out. This is the wrong side of the fabric. Here's the cuff. The seam allowance is underneath the sleeve, and I'm just going to sew on the edge using my trusty presser foot. Okay, so there you can see the understitching. Now let's turn the sleeve right sides out again. This is extended, and now when we fold this over, you can see that the understitching is going to keep the wrong side of the fabric inside. Once I give this a good press, cotton usually will stand up really nice on its own. You can also give it a tack right here on this seam right there. I'm going to sew this cuff down, and I'm going to sew right into that seam so that it's not seen. Okay, so that is sewn there, and then I'm going to leave this one for later. I'm going to just give it a little hand tack in one place there. And now we do the 2 gathering rows so we can set this onto the armhole. Okay, so I left you there with an assembled sleeve with a cuff all ready to go, and I have a really good video showing you how to set in woven sleeves, a method that's really guaranteed to give you really good results. This is how the thumbnail looks, and I'll link all these helpful videos down below as well. Now let's finish up with this curved hem. What you see me sewing now is all along the bottom edge for the hem. It is a curved hem and it'll be folded up twice by 1/4 inch. So to make it easier, I'm doing a guide stitch all along the bottom at 1/4 inch. Will help us press, and then the next fold can be done manually. I've got my hem ready to be sewn. Remember I did that first guide stitch, so that is the first fold you see there, and then I folded it up manually by another 1/4 inch and hand basted it. All I need to do is sew it, and I'm going to sew it from the wrong side. It doesn't make a difference to me the way that the stitch looks from the other side, and I can see what I'm doing. These are my favorite hem allowances for a curved hem, when you have to fold up by 1/4 inch twice. I've been known to fold up by 1/8 and then 1/4, and I think that's even smoother. But anything bigger than 1/4 plus 1/4, you just start getting puckers, you know, it's just too much hem allowance for a curve. This is my cotton Aria. Look at this print. It's so beautiful. I love this so much that I know this one also is going to end up being an Aria. It's so nice to wear. It feels amazing on. And it was so easy to manipulate. So if you've never sewn a shirt, I recommend a type of fabric like this so that you can get accustomed to the techniques and the steps, and you're not going to have to be fighting with your fabric. I think the collar stands really well. Both are interfaced. I actually pressed it there where you would have the seam, but there is no seam. There is a center front placket. I have 8 buttons for this one, 2 inches apart. This is the button that matches my bust height there. I didn't need to move the placement of this bust dart. It's correctly placed for me. Short sleeves with a cuff is super neat. This fabric also just stands up on its own. I had to do the tiniest tack right there, but that's it. If I'd used rayon or chiffon, I know the cuff would be flopping and it wouldn't look very good. There you can see the understitching that keeps the wrong side of the sleeve from being seen. This isn't dramatically different to the right side of the fabric, but still I don't want it to be seen. Here at the back we have the seam of the yoke, little box pleat there, curved hem. This was the version I made in testing and I hadn't adjusted for length. So this one fits me shorter than the second one I made, which is the one I adjusted for my height. But it's still really wearable. Look, I just noticed that this looks like I tried to pattern match. because the seam of the sleeve, the seam of the shoulder is right there, but that's purely coincidence. I did not try to match that flower. I just noticed that right now. Anyway, I'm really happy. It's a really casual style for me. I've just styled it with a denim skirt, my glissando denim skirt, and some pink shoes I have. I think it's a really happy, springy look, and it just makes me happy. This is the first Aria shirt I made. It's a really lightweight cotton. I love the print. This one is shorter than all the rest because I didn't make length adjustments here, so it's slightly shorter. It's really lovely. It's got the all-in-one collar, the short sleeve with the cuff. You'll see the details up closer. Super comfortable. There you can see the button placket. There's a nice amount of ease at the waist and hips. This is not a fitted shirt. It's really nice. You can see the curved hem. There is a box pleat at the back underneath the yoke. This is my Aria collar. It's the all-in-one stand and collar piece, so it's much more simple to sew. Meets in the center, but I would never wear it like that. I'll just wear it open, probably with one or two buttons undone. It's still not showing anything, and it's nice and comfortable. It lies really nicely on the back also. Here is an even closer look, and it stands up. It's really pretty. It's just as pretty as a traditional collar. It's just a simplified version. I think if you've never sewn a collar before and you want to try this one, you will be really successful and you'll be really happy, and you can have a really nice shirt. I made the full bust option, and this one has a side buster that fits really well. It gives really good shaping on the side. Here is my short sleeve cuff. It's really neat. The way it's sewn, I love it. It's just so neat and so easy to do, and it looks really pretty. I have a really good shoulder fit and sleeve fit here. I really love the style. I'm really happy I was able to use a cotton for once, and I just love the way the collar feels and how easy it was to sew. All around win. Here is my chiffon version. It's so beautiful. I'm just, yeah, I can't even with this one. And it's so sheer that you can see the purple light coming from it from the back. So don't think the shirt is purple. It's just, I'm gonna put myself in front of it. It's completely transparent. It is a type of animal print, but not the typical animal print. I love these bright tones of terracotta that match my Allegro pants. I would not actually purchase a typical animal print. It's just not my jam, but these different ones, yeah. I have the similar options here than the other one. I have the same type of collar, and even though it's chiffon, it's still not floppy. It's still nice. Both layers interfaced right there. My placket, I use these metal buttons, 10 of them all the way down. I think they match the tones in here. Here's my yoke right there. My pleat. This one's longer, and I've got the same type of hem. I sewed this little bit by hand to make it less bulky, and then after the placket there, that's when the machine starts right there. Little things. And now, how proud am I of these sleeve plackets? It can be done with chiffon. It surely can be done. And I made sure to cut some print that would contrast the print there so that you could see it, because what's the point of all the work if you can't see? Now, I thought the cuff was wide enough to put 2 buttons there, so I did. And look, my hand fits. I can put my hand freely in and out, so I'll never have to unbutton them, although they are totally functional. These are totally functional also. I do want to have the option of wearing this open, like a type of light layer over something, so I definitely wanted functional buttonholes for that. Look, the time it takes to make a garment like this is considerable compared to the cotton version, but so satisfying. Whenever I make one of these chiffon garments, I know I'm going to have it forever, and it's going to be something really special. It just feels so amazing on, and the sense of accomplishment is so nice. I have experience with the fabric, and the only way to have experience with this type of fabric is to actually start using it. But if you've never sewn with it, I wouldn't suggest you make a shirt. Make something more simple, something that has less seams to get your feet wet with this type of fabric. But any technique can be done. Look, here you can see my sleeve seam. It's the only one that has been sewn and serged. On the sides, I went the extra mile and I did some French seams. It can be done if you have 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I wanted to show you how this placket looks like inside. It's so neat. There are no raw areas, nothing that's going to come undone. It's very nice on the inside, just as nice as it is on the outside. I like to sew my cuffs in the reverse also, similar to how I sew collars. So I would sew the cuff onto the wrong side of the fabric and then flip it towards the front. That way I can top stitch on the right side of the fabric, and I'm much more confident that I'm going to have a really neat result there. So I'd been announcing this was going to go with the Allegro pants. Let's see how that looks. And I lost a race against sunset, so I had to take the pictures inside. But I think it ends up matching because I have a brick wall in the dining room. I mean, it's stones. It sort of matches. So let's see. This is my second Aria shirt, this time with long sleeves, beautiful chiffon that goes perfect with my recent Allegro pants that I made in linen. I really like it. This time it's lengthened a little bit to suit my height, and you'll see the details up closer. I've got the all-in-one collar option. Up closer you can see the real colors and the length that I have, a little bit longer, 2 inches longer than the original length, and the sleeves are 1.5 inches longer. Super nice amount of ease there. I do have a cami underneath, still plenty of space, super comfortable. Here is the cuff. I put 2 buttons and my sleeve tower placket. Super proud of that. It takes quite a while to do it in chiffon, but all is possible and it's very neat, and I'm very proud of how they turned out. Here's a closer look at my all-in-one collar and stand. Never wear it closed. At the back we have the yoke and the box pleat, of course showing off my placket again and my collar. I would probably wear it with 2 buttons undone like that. I think that is how I would wear it. Love the colors. Different type of animal prints. I don't usually wear the typical animal prints, but when you have terracotta in there, it's a different tone of color, and I so love this blouse. It's so beautiful. It was an effort to sew, and I'm going to treasure it for years to come. So pretty. You can make the Aria in chiffon if you want a challenge. Showing off my little plackets, and don't think I'm going to just leave you and not show you how to sew them, because I will. I'm preparing a different video that's going to include these finishing techniques, not just the tower placket, but also there's another technique that you'll see in blouses that's a little bit more delicate, that is finished with binding, and it's got a lapped vent there. Also goes onto a cuff. I really think any of these techniques elevates any project. I really want you to have the resource of seeing how to do it in a way that you can achieve a really nice result. Very approachable. I'll show you a sneak peek of another Aria I'm working on, where I'm going to show you this. And it's my dream shirt. It's houndstooth. I love it so much. It'll be a winter style shirt for me because the fabric is a little heavier. So that is something I'm still sewing. You will see the placket technique with that fabric very soon. Don't forget to check out the Aria in the release week because the price is much lower, and also the course. If you want to get the course and have the Aria pattern included there, have a look at those options. I will leave all the links down below. Don't forget to check my blog post. I will be updating that blog post and adding more things onto it as I have more content available on shirt making, so it'll be a really valuable resource for you. That's all from me today. I'm gonna go upstairs and keep sewing more shirts. There will be another video where I'm going to show you an amazing dress and my houndstooth version. So there's a lot more sewing aspects to see. Don't think this is the last Aria video, because it's a pattern that can just take you a long way, and I'm loving making content about it because it's so nice. I'll see you again very soon. Bye.